welcome to the 2022 Master Training Program. In this session, we're going to be looking at maintaining a facility from a safety perspective. There are many different aspects of keeping your facility up to speed in regards to permitting, safety, housekeeping, etc. And we're going to take a detailed look at that. We're going to cover what we call our facility checklist. It's a lot of different items. It can be a little bit overbearing, 26 items or so, but we're going to break them down to be a little bit more palatable. We're going to group them in regard to audit functions, inspection functions, the review function, and the training function when we look at what really needs to happen at our facilities in general when it comes to environmental and safety. Let's just take a moment, refresh everyone on training. What's the purpose of training? It's so that everybody's aware of what needs to be done and we stay on top of it and we do it the correct way. So we're going to train and train and then train some more. In all of these areas that we're going to talk about, that's going to be really critical. We'll write programs, evaluate programs, and then rewrite the program after further evaluation. It can always be improved on. It's the same thing as PDCA or establish audit, fix whatever might be wrong, and then re-audit again. And then 100% of the employees need to be on board. Some of these critical elements of our checklist, every single employee needs to be involved. They need to be aware of what's going on. And it's an old cliche, but there is a method to the madness. Everything that I'm covering will be available on the intranet, the complete checklist. That checklist is not meant to be totally comprehensive, all the responsibilities, but it's some key areas that we definitely need the plants to focus on. So that document will be available on the intranet. Also on the intranet will be a plethora of documents that will support all of these different areas. So let's jump into group one. There's roughly 10 items under this audit type responsibility for a facility checklist. I'm going to go through these very fast. These take hours, sometimes days to work on, but the most important thing will be is that the plant manager isolates specific folks to take the lead in these particular areas and train, establish, inspect, audit, develop, etc. So for group one for audits, we have dock inspection, contractor safety audits. We have industrial hygiene audits, which are very important for air, particulates, ozone, and sound. Control of hazardous energy also is very important. Lockout, tagout, arc flash is all related to that. A security review of the facility. Managers should have staff performing audits in the facility. Where are the weak points? Is the facility secure? Are the personnel working in the facility? Are they secure? A facility lighting review. That, remember, leads directly toward the comfort of your employees, the success of your quality program. So lighting is a critical issue as well that needs to be looked at. THM and 5S review and training. It's the old Japanese program. We enhanced it a bit with total housekeeping management, but we've got to be able to produce a plant that would pass any inspection in terms of housekeeping. Emergency exits and audits, the egress plan. It not only is it a requirement, but we want our employees to know that at any point in time, they have an easy way to exit the building in case of an emergency. And then combustible dust inspection. This is a hot topic with OSHA. Combustible dust, obviously, the phrase itself identifies the concern, and we've got to keep plants free of any dust buildup within the facility. The final item on this list is the emergency evacuation drill. Of course, that's tied to our emergency exits and everything. 100% of all employees must obtain completion of literally going through a drill. You have to keep record by name and show that whether it's a new employee or an employee that's been there for 10 years, annually they must go through a drill. And when OSHA comes in, they will ask you for a list of names and they'll validate that against your payroll. So that's a critical issue. The second group of items we're going to cover fall under the area more along the lines of inspection. There's just 5 items and we'll go through these quickly. So fire extinguisher inspections. Sometimes plants are lulled to sleep on this issue. They don't have fires, they never use the fire extinguisher, but they need to be inspected monthly, quarterly, annually. They need to be in good condition all the time. Fire extinguishers actually have to be replaced. They have an end of life that also has to be dealt with. So we can't neglect fire extinguisher inspections. Fire suppression systems, one level up, your fire suppression system, all your sprinkler systems, everything related to that in your facility must always be permitted, in good standing, and ready to function if need be. And then hearing tests, very, very important. Hearing tests, it's a mandatory requirement by OSHA that anyone in a hearing conservation workspace, they must be tested no less than annually. They also must be tested within the first 6 months of employment. And then any threshold shift, any change in the ability to hear, the employee literally has to go see a doctor. It gets very involved, so we need to be on top of that on hearing tests, particularly related to the baseline test and the annual test. All of you are aware of the fact that we have insurance companies that come into just about every single facility annually. They need to know what they're insuring, but there are 2 aspects of it, and you'll see that also at the bottom of our list as we group these inspections. The property insurance survey as well as the property risk survey. So one is very building and equipment focused. The other one is personnel and process focused. So regardless, we're also held to a high standard of operations from and by our insurance company. For our third group, we're going to cover 8 items and sort of grouped under as a review type area, but it's basically reviewing the status of the facility or status of data, whatever the case is. So we sort of group this as review, but the first one is OSHA 300, 300A, and 301 reporting. There is a significant requirement for OSHA record-keeping data management. Our corporate safety team will always help you on that, but that is mandated by OSHA annually. Air permits. Many of our plants have air permit exemptions, similar to what we have in Lolita, but some of our plants are actually permitted to run, and they're obligated to keep records annually. They're obligated to report any changes as changes occur, etc. So that's a critical area. Water-related permits, it's the same way. We have multiple permits here in Lolita. Every facility should stay on top of that. Our goal is that every single location within our group never runs into an issue with permitting with any of the environmental regulatory agencies. We want to keep a clean record. We have a clean record, and that's our goal always. Waste-related permits falls along the same area. Any waste that we do have to discharge, that they are also covered appropriately under a permit. Then we throw in here lockout tagout requirements separately. It's such a critical area to stop equipment when folks are working on it. Over the years, it's been a source of a lot of unfortunate injuries. Lockout tagout training is essential. It must happen. It must happen with all employees. So continue with a major focus on lockout training. And then hazardous materials review. Sometimes we think, we really don't have hazardous materials. But in fact, our plants do have considerable hazardous materials to some degree. They're flammable, to some degree they're corrosives, to some degree inhalation of the item is not good. So we've got to be totally on top of our SDS program. And then hepatitis B immunizations. We miss that a lot. A lot of times we don't talk about hepatitis B, we don't hear about it, so we forget that certain folks, depending on their job function, they are required to have the hepatitis B vaccinations. So get with your HR department on that critical issue. And then, of course, job hazard and job safety analysis. My own personal belief is that that is the most important thing a plant manager can facilitate at his location, where every process is reviewed very carefully to identify the hazards, hence it's called job hazard analysis, or we also call it job safety analysis, to identify how is this job going to be done safely. The fourth group is a major focus on items related to training. We already know how critical training is to the success of our group, and it's for the betterment of our employees. So very first, basic required safety training We call it the IBRT, Basic Required Training or Safety Training. Every single employee upon being hired and then annually thereafter, they must be trained on every element related to OSHA that they may experience on the floor. So that's very critical. We put out enough information on that. If you need more information, certainly reach out to Corporate Safety. Equipment and task specific training is a whole nother level of training. Every single thing that an employee does, they must be trained on. There should be a written record of that training. It literally doesn't matter. You have to think every single thing that the employee does, there must be written training on it. So that's a key and very critical area when we talk about training out in the plant. Machine guarding, again, we're plastics manufacturing. We have so many different moving parts. Machine guarding is perhaps, dare I say, the most important training that we do. Employees need to know to keep their hands out of places that they shouldn't be, but most importantly, we should be putting guards on our equipment so that the employees cannot even reach into it, period. We need to protect them 100% in that fashion. Forklift training, we have nearly 1,000 forklifts in our group. And with those forklifts, those operators, unfortunately, sometimes are operating very close to personnel. And our goal is obviously to keep the greatest distance possible between the forklift and the pedestrian. So major focus, remember we have wait for the wave, make eye contact, and then go. Both pedestrian and forklift operator can go their separate ways. We have special training on that as well that's available. And then any other equipment, such as man lifts, for instance, or even pallet jacks, motorized or otherwise, you should have training on all the equipment that your employees are operating. Overhead cranes is something that we unfortunately forget to train on thoroughly. And then dock safety. Dock safety, again, with probably also roughly 1,000, maybe more than 1,000 docks in our group, it is imperative that the employees working around the docks receive very specific dock safety policies and dock safety training, and written record of that training should be maintained. Summarizing this training module, we've obviously covered a lot of material and very quickly, but we have so many resources all available on the intranet. I urge you to select some key staff in your facility, assign to them these various items on the checklist, and hold them accountable to get things accomplished on an annual basis, monthly basis, whatever it might be. Corporate Safety is always ready to support you at any time. I want to thank you for your time spent on this training module. It will pay off wonderfully for you and all of our employees, creating a very safe and healthy work environment. Thank you.